Welcome back to HQ Spotlight, taking things over to the WNBA, where we have a new #1 in our power rankings. It is the Minnesota Lynx. They have been without Nneka Collier. She's been dealing with a back injury, and yet they've only lost one game this season. They sit atop at 12-1. The Mercury making some big moves as well. They come in at #2. Some concerns, though, when it comes to the Liberty, who were the previous #1 team on this list. They dropped all the way down to #5 after they've had some struggles in the loss column this season. You can't see my Dallas Wings on this list, but that's only because they sit at #11. They're up 2 spots from 13 a week ago. Let's break down the W Power Rankings, and to do so, we bring in our Terrika Foster-Brasby. And Terrika, we're going to pick up the conversation with the Minnesota Lynx because about a week or so ago, there was just a tiny bit of concern. They had lost that game, then they lost Fee due to injury, and yet here they stand #1 this week. What has been impressive to you about what Minnesota has done this season?
Well, I'm not sure who had concern, but they were very premature, because I think the biggest thing and the most impressive thing is that it's like, hey, no Nneka, no problem. And that's a huge reason why they're sitting in the #1 spot. They're showing that they know how to win without their star. They've already locked up the Commissioner's Cup without Collier in the second half of their matchup against the Aces. But then they turn around on Saturday and get 29 points out of Kayla McBride to push their win streak to 3. And that's, again, after that only loss that they have in the season. So I think the focus this week is certainly going to be on, one, how long is Collier expected to be out? But more importantly, Minnesota has enough pieces to be able to weather that storm against their opponents this week.
Yeah, the Lynx taking on the Mystics on the road tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern. But to your point, we don't know when Fee's coming back. It kind of feels like it's not a problem, though, at this point for them as they go to the top of the list. If we go to the Liberty, Terrika, been one of the more interesting teams this year, because I feel like it was you and I on this program, about a week or so ago, and we were talking about who can stop the Liberty. Apparently, it's the Liberty that can stop the Liberty, because they've lost 3 of their last 4. I know that the starters right now, no Jonquel Jones, no Sabrina Ionescu, Leonie Fibich out as well. How do the Liberty stop the bleeding right now?
Well, to be fair, I actually had the Liberty at #4 in my power rankings this week and not 5. And that's because the game that they did win last week was against the Dream. So it was a little hard for me to rank them lower than Atlanta after a head-to-head matchup. But again, you're right. This team is finding difficulties without Jonquel Jones, and rightfully so, because of everything that she means for this team. So her being out for the next 6 to 4 weeks with an ankle sprain, that means that Kennedy Burke, Niara Sabally, they're going to be primarily responsible for making up those minutes. With the Liberty having lost 3 of their last 4 and getting ready to face a Golden State team that is scorching hot right now. They got the #4 defense in the league, a Mercury team that has won 5 straight. I think this is the week that's really going to tell us how resilient this New York team really is.
Yeah, by the way, the Valkyries, we'll get into them more as the week goes on, but they jump up to #6, and they have been, to your point, scorching in their first year as an expansion team. Let's go back to the top of the rankings, Terrika, and that's where we find the Phoenix Mercury, and it's another team that injuries, no Diana Taurasi, no Brittany Griner, and there were a lot of question marks about what this team was going to look like without those 2 stars. It took them a minute, but boy, are they here. Every single game, they just continue to gain ground here, Terrika, and now they come in at #2 on the power rankings this week.
I apologize, Phoenix. I apologize because I was disrespectful, okay? I, along with many other members in the media who probably won't admit it, we did not give the Mercury the love that they deserved at the beginning of this season. And man, are they really showing us? They're finally at full strength. Everyone's back. They're playing very well. You know, last week they played against the Sun, and so I got a chance to talk to Satu Sabally, and she told me straight up, I don't want people to look at me and think I am only an offensive player. I'm a defensive player too. I'm challenging myself on the defensive end every single game because I want some of those defensive accolades. Well, guess what? You can see it because this team is rebounding. They're putting emphasis on defense around the basket. They are scary. That's all I'm saying, is they are scary.
Well, and the numbers match up what you're saying. They've now won 5 straight. They're coming off a win over Chicago where they hit a franchise-best 17 three-pointers and forced 22 turnovers. So it's not about how you start, Terrika. It's how you finish.
Absolutely.
All right, let's keep moving here on our power rankings. Let's talk about Seattle next. They jump up to number 4 on this list. And I thought, Terrika, I know that you'll appreciate this as well. The conversation that Skylar Diggins and Nneka Ogwumike had after the game, where Skylar was just pouring into Ogwumike, calling her the most disrespected MVP this league has seen. She said she's the soulmate of this roster. When you think about how Seattle has ascended these power rankings over the season and how integral those two players have been, what can you say about the season they're having?
It's uncharacteristic for me to think that this Seattle team couldn't be where they are. Again, I had a little bit of a different ranking for Seattle this week. I had them number 3 on my power rankings, but this team goes as Nneka goes. And last week she went off. She has scored 25 plus points in all 3 games, shooting 71% from the field. She's all over the floor. She's dominating on the defensive end, on the offensive end. And I really hope that the fans are paying attention, because right now they're in the middle of All-Star voting, and Nneka is playing at a very high caliber right now. She's a 9-time All-Star, and she needs to be a 10-time All-Star. And I need the fans to check how they are voting and make sure that they are considering how well Nneka Ogwumike is playing. Don't sleep on the 2016 MVP.
I did my vote this morning, and I put Nneka was like the 3rd player that I selected on my ballot, because to your point, she has just been so underrated as the season has gone on. We know Caitlin Clark will more than likely be the All-Star again this year, but her Fever have kind of been struggling a little bit. I think a lot of people thought she'd return from that injury and she'd be the savior all over again, and yet they blew 2 double-digit leads last week. They got into the scrap of the century earlier in the week as well. Where's your concern when it comes to the Indiana Fever ahead of the All-Star break?
Well, good news and bad news, right? So let's start with bad news first. Bad news is they've got 2 games on the road this week, and the road is where Caitlin Clark has shot the worst. She's been inefficient, just 1 of 22 from 3, but she's great at home. So this week, as they travel to Seattle and Dallas, you really just want to see Clark find her shot. The good news is that this week, we saw Commissioner's Cup play where Indiana made it to the championship game, and they're going to be facing off against Minnesota. And Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell have been so incredibly good, especially in that matchup against the Aces. Like, despite the loss, they went off for 20 and 26 points respectively. So you got to feel good that Indiana has a shot to kind of control their own destiny as they head into the championship matchup against Minnesota later on. But at the end of the day, you just need Caitlin to find her shot on the road, and they'll be fine.
Caitlin Clark, 1 of 17 from deep in those 2 losses. She is now shooting under 32% from 3. So to your point, she's got to step it up from deep. The logo, it's where she likes to be. Terrika,
it's where she likes it.
We like having you on Spotlight, man. I certainly love our WNBA chats each and every week. We talked about the Liberty. There's a little bit of panic when it comes to their record as of late, even though they still sit atop of the odds to win the WNBA at +125. But we had talked about the Lynx, man. They are closing in, no fee, no problem. They only have 1 loss on the season so far.